Three, two, one. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Black Junior Golf Podcast. My name is Ro Thompson. Man, y'all are in for a special treat tonight. Before we get my guest on, I want to make a couple of announcements before we get our guest speaker on tonight. First thing I want to do is I want to recognize all the juniors that are out there just, hitting milestones and doing some great things out there in junior golf. First thing I want to acknowledge is I got to acknowledge Matthew Vitale. Matthew, you guys, he shot a 62 a couple of weeks ago, broke Sam Snead's course record in Pennsylvania. Man, that's an awesome feat. As a matter of fact, he was also featured on the Golf Channel for that feat. And so we're excited about some of the things that Matthew's doing up in the state of Pennsylvania. Also, we want to send a good luck to all of our juniors that'll be playing in that'll be qualifying for the U.S. Open, the U.S. Amateur, and the U.S. Junior Amateur. So we got several juniors that are be qualifying for those particular tournaments. So we wish you well. And y'all go out and shoot some really good scores and have a good tournament. I also want to congratulate Kendall for qualifying for her high school in the state of Texas. Kendall has been playing very well. She just qualified for the state tournament in Texas, and she's really starting to put up some really good scores. She's been diving in the 60s and playing some really good golf. And of course, I can't say enough about Sean and Ty Treadwell is doing some good things up in Nebraska. Corey, Cam Guyton is just tearing it up. If you ever see the pictures of Cam, the other boys are always taller and bigger, and he's beating all of them. So Cam, keep it going. We love what you're doing. And then we got Dayton. Up in the north is doing some great things. Dayton Reed, we got Kyrie on the podcast tonight. Dayton's been winning tournament after tournament after tournament. We're watching Dayton, Kyrie, and he's doing some great things in the U.S. Kids Junior Tour. So hats off to everybody. I know we got a lot of good things happening. And I apologize if I didn't get a chance to call out some of you, but hey, just know we're watching. Great things are happening in junior golf, and we just want to make sure that we continue this journey of getting better and doing what we're supposed to do in the game of junior golf. So tonight, you all, we have a special guest, and when I pick out guests, I try to pick out guests that can be totally helpful to junior golf. We've had the AJGA on, and we've had some of the other great teachers, and we've had some of our young juniors on, and we've had some parents on. We've had Mackenzie Mack, and we've had a lot of, up and coming professional golfers. And so tonight, you all, we have a special guest by the name of Marty Griffin. Marty Griffin, you all, is the founder of Junior Golf Strategy. He's put together some good teachings, and he has his own podcast. And one of the things that Marty is really good at, he's good at helping juniors to break through. Okay, like one of the breakthroughs that I had that we're trying to accomplish with John is we're trying to get him into the lower 70s. He's been between 78, 82. So we're trying to get him into the lower 70s. And that's just a breakthrough that's going to happen real soon. So without any further delay, I want to bring to our show Mr. Marty Griffin. Hey, Marty, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's finally, I'm in Wisconsin, so it's finally actually starting to feel like golf season. So I'm ready to get out and get going.
Good, man. Good. I'm down in South Carolina, so it's been, pretty mild here for the last couple of months, and we generally only have about maybe two or three cold months in South Carolina. So we're excited down here, and we got a lot of golf ahead of us. But Marty, want to thank you again for being on the show. And before we get started here into talking about golf strategy and just different ways that you help juniors break through, give us your journey, and we're just gonna have a conversation tonight.
Yeah.
Give us your journey in the game of golf. How'd you get started? Just give us a little history about Marty.
So I have what I like to think is kind of an interesting journey to golf. So I was the standard rough and tumble kid, wrestling all the time, and my parents got me into more physical sports when I was younger. But I had an open heart surgery when I was 14 months old, and so the doctors were always very kind of cautious with my abilities and what I could do. And when I was 12 years old, I actually had my second open heart surgery. And from that point forward, they're like, you're done wrestling, you're done with baseball, football, any of those things that could have like a hard shot to your chest or cause increase of blood pressure.
Right.
They said no to. And my dad just happened to be returning to golf after like a 20-year absence. And we had cleared it with the doctors, like, well, can I at least play golf? It's just walking around. Little did I know then, hey, if you want high blood pressure, go play golf. Right. So I happened to follow my dad to the driving range, and honestly, I just fell in love with it. I happened to have a bit of a knack for it. My brothers all played hockey, and so there were plenty of hockey sticks in our garage. So I was already kind of used to that motion, dropping the shoulder and powering through, lots of hip turn. And it just kind of clicked for me. And because it was really the only thing I was given permission to do, like from a medical standpoint, I dove in head first. My dad, he tried to work with me for like the first couple of months, and he's like, honestly, I've taught you everything that I know. It's time for lessons. And so I started lessons as a 12-year-old. I got into the Wisconsin Junior Tour, and I played all over the state. I tried qualifiers for national events. I never got to the level of some of the folks that you're mentioning so far, but it was enough to open some doors to a couple schools. And really for me, it helped me realize what I wanted to do with the game, because I tried to make more of a playing career out of golf, and that wasn't where my enjoyment was. I didn't love the grind in that respect. What I really liked was at a certain point, I think I was probably about 20 years old, I started to become my dad's coach.
Okay.
And he was about a 20 handicap, and in about a year and a half, we got him down to a 14, and it was one of the last events of the season. He ended up shooting an even par 36 on the back nine. It's the first time he ever shot even par on 9 holes.
Wow.
He ended up finishing with a 79, and he was in like I want to say he was in like the B flight or maybe the C flight for his tournament.
Right.
And he blew the doors off of everybody, and he could not believe. It was so cool to watch my dad there with the scorecard, just added up like 4 or 5 times in a row. He's like, there's no way.
Right.
And he did it again, and he did it again. And his competitor, who was keeping his card for him, was like, yeah, no, you shot a 79.
Right.
And he just couldn't believe it. And so from that point on, that's what I knew I wanted to do in golf, is I wanted to help other people have those breakthroughs.
That's good. That's really good, man. And so Marty, talk to us a little bit about golf strategy school. When you think about golf strategy, you're thinking about course management. You think about different strategies on how you want to play different holes. Just talk a little bit about what you bring to the game to help juniors really have that big time breakthrough.
Yeah. So when we talk about strategy, it's pretty much everything between the ears, right?
Right.
So there's so many levels and so many layers to that. And I think a lot of people, they really struggle with either how to apply it. Like they know what they're supposed to do, but how do we get used to actually putting that into play in the moment, especially under moments of pressure? And and how do we make that such a natural part of our game that it doesn't occupy any of our mental bandwidth? Because there are, even if you just think about like the very basic level of golf, there are so many mental calculations and inputs and everything that you have to do
Right.
before you even get to swinging the club, that you really have to have a system, a process, and really a pattern that you stick to, a habit, you can call it that if you wanted to, that is so ingrained that it happens without any thought. And that's really what I've kind of come to help people with, is help them figure out how to develop their own habit and how to really kind of make it their own, and not just learn their own habit, but how to manage it going forward, because nothing from a skill standpoint is static forever.
Right.
So, it's that old adage, and I don't know who said it first, but you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're with us or you're against us. It's that whole kind of philosophy.
Right.
So very similar with golf. Very rarely do our skills stay the same level for a long period of time. They're either slightly improving or slightly, unimproving, and we're stuck with, how do we see that trend line going down and pick it back up before it really costs us in like a major catastrophic way,
Right.
whether it's a brain fart and a double bogey, or whether it's like a full-on funk with like the yips for a period of time.
Right.
So that's really what I like to help people do, is help, figure out how they can manage those skills and do it really on their own.
Good. So talk to us a little bit about those strategies. So let's say you got a junior that's, maybe 80-ish, high 70-ish, and they're really trying to get to, even par, better than even par. What are some of the different strategies that you teach your golfers to help them have that breakthrough?
Sure. So really, golf is about consistency.
Right.
Because I don't care if your shot goes 30 yards left to right. If it's going 30 yards left to right every single time, it's consistent. You can play it. You can make it work. So usually what I'll start with is I'll ask the person to describe their pre-shot routine.
Gotcha.
And if we're in this type of setting, a virtual setting, it's nice and easy to do. I don't have to be there to see it, but it should be something, the way that I describe it is, this is something that you should be able to tell me straight off the top of your head if the fire alarm went off in the middle of the night.
Gotcha.
So that fire alarm goes off, you shoot up out of bed, what's going on? What's going on? If for some reason I'm standing at the foot of your bed and I say, hey, what's your pre-shot routine? You should be able to tell it to me.
Right.
It should be that ingrained, because if you don't have a consistent approach to every shot, how can you expect to have a consistent result? And so I find that's kind of the root of a lot of the issues, is an inconsistent approach to that pre-shot routine, especially if we're at that, we'll dip under 80 a couple times, but boy, I would really like to see a red number at the end of that scorecard.
Right.
So that's where I'll start. And then from there, we kind of take it a step at a time, and we look for, where those weaknesses are in the mental game. I have a process that I walk people through, and I'm happy to take everybody through it here today, that I call the avenue to success. And I call it the avenue because you have to analyze, you have to visualize, and you have to execute on every single shot. And if you measure your success rate at all of those, you are going to start to see where that weakness is. So when we talk about analyzing, that's the base level thing that everybody learns pretty early on in golf. How far is it? Where's the wind? Is there something crazy that I need to be aware of? It's, it's everything that you kind of notice walking up to the shot. Visualization at this level for juniors, they're probably doing it if they're really this skill level. But if someone's in that kind of like, I'm, most of the time I'm 80, 82, on the good days, it'll be 78, 77.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's not consistent for people. Like the visualization falls off a lot of times. And when you pose that question, like if I were to ask someone, hey, how do you visualize your shot? they really kind of struggle to put parameters around it. And what I have found is the absolute easiest way to visualize a shot is just say what you want it to be out loud. Kind of speak it into existence.
Exactly.
And so if people are playing with me for the first time, somewhere within like the first couple holes, I'll probably make a joke that says, hey, if you hear me talking to myself, don't worry. It's part of my pre-shot process. It's my visualization.
Right. Good.
And I'll say, like, this is my start line. I want it to move right to left, and I want it to land at this hyper specific point and release to this area. Gotcha. So I kind of walk my ball through its entire journey that I want it to go on. So that's my visualization process.
Right.
For execution, it's easy to kind of think execution as like the quality of the shot, but to me, it's not. It's whether or not we stuck to the plan that we just laid out with our analysis and our visualization. So it's kind of a measurement of commitment, right?
Gotcha.
So execution isn't, did I make the 6-foot putt? Execution is, okay, I read 2 inches of break. Did I actually commit to that line, or did I kind of get scared and give it a little tug and try to pull it more toward the cup?
Right.
So that's our measure of execution. So if I'm playing a par 3 and I make par, right, I had 3 shots that I should have analyzed. I had 3 shots that I should have visualized, and I had 3 shots that I had the opportunity to execute that plan on. So I'm going to keep on my scorecard an A row, an A, a V, and an E row. And so if I actually analyzed all 3 shots, I'm going to give myself a score of 3. If I visualized all 3 shots, I'm going to give myself a score of 3. If I executed, if I stuck to that plan all 3 times, I'm going to give myself a score of 3. But if I forgot to do any one of those steps, I might only have a 2 out of 3.
Gotcha.
on that specific section. Okay. And so, when you take that through the entire round, professional golfers, they are in the mid 90s, okay, for their ability to do that on every single shot.
Gotcha.
So this is a really, really easy way to compare ourselves to professionals and to see where we might have some low-hanging fruit in terms of the ability to improve. Because anything like the time and the effort and the range work and all that stuff, yeah, that takes time. In my opinion, when you're out on a course, there's nothing you can do to fix what's going to happen that day. The results of that day are all because of the work that you've put in previously. Right. It's the grind, it's the effort, it's the practice. But when we're out there, aside from our swing, we still have a ton of control. Anything that comes down to a decision being made, that's something that you had control of. And it's not something that was reliant upon all of the hours of practice that you've already done.
Right. So when you talk about the analyzing, when you talk about the execution, the visualization, Marty, what do you generally recommend to a junior that's maybe having a tough day? That's maybe hitting a couple of bad shots. They may have had a bogey, double bogey on a hole or 2. What are your recommendations when a junior is having a really tough time during a round, or what would you say about that?
So in the moment, it's really hard to let things go. I totally understand that. Right. Especially at this elite level, I think it's really important. Most of the elite kids could probably tell me their pre-shot routine if the fire alarm went off at midnight and they were just woken up. Right. They probably have that ability. Right. But what a lot of people are probably missing is the opposite side of that coin, a post-shot routine. It is hugely important. And it was a Tiger Woods book from, I want to say, right around the year 2000, I think is when I read it. And it was all about how he played his game. I think it was a Golf Channel production. But so I read that book, and that's where I first learned of the concept of a post-shot routine. And for me, my post-shot routine is I give myself either 30 seconds or 30 steps, depending on what the shot just was. to be as heated and irritated and upset about that shot, which if we look at Jordan Spieth, boy's got some fire behind him. When he's upset, he's upset. He's banging clubs. He's doing all of that. But you can tell kind of internally there's a timer.
Gotcha.
And when that timer goes off, hey, that's back there. That's done. I can't control it. I acknowledged it. I understand what may have happened, what my mistake may have been. But the fact of the matter is, I can't do anything to change that now. We're moving on. We're starting our assessment, our analysis for the next shot. So I'll give myself 30 steps if I am hitting any shot that's not on the green. Okay. If I'm on or around the green, I give myself about 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
To either celebrate or be angry about that previous shot. And I think it is just as important to have that post-shot routine so you can manage the emotional aspect, because we all know, and as parents, my kids play basketball because they're gigantically tall for their age. I have a 12-year-old who's 5'7". Wow. And she's been 5'7" since she was 10.
Right.
So like, I understand watching and having all of that emotion as a parent. And I kind of go back to my time on the golf course and how I dealt with that emotion on the golf course, helped me learn how to deal with that emotion of watching my kids play sports.
Right.
But, you have to be able to close the chapter on each individual shot. So whether it's my method, which I straight up took from Tiger Woods, right, or whether it's some other method that better suits your personality or your junior's style of play, that's fine. But there has to be a method to close the book. That way, if you do come across that stumbling point, you accidentally miss a green and then you don't hit the greatest chip and then you make a really bad first putt and then you end up 3-jacking it and you're like, how did that turn into a 6? It's important to acknowledge it, but you have to be able to put it behind you, and you have to start to build that process into your game. Another thing that I would do if I was really, really, really having a hard time letting go of a shot or a hole or whatever it is, maybe I'm playing someone one-on-one in a match play event and they just smoked me on a hole and I'm trying to recover mentally.
Right.
It's called a power stance or a superhero pose. So it's just the way that it was explained to me, and I got this from Debbie O'Connell, who was the LPGA Instructor of the Year, I want to say 4 years ago. It has to do kind of with our neurolinguistic programming, like how we behave and how we react and the physiological reactions that we have within ourselves. So a power pose is just kind of imagine you're that superhero, standing on top of a building. You got your hands on your hips, you got your chest out high, you got nice straight posture, and just take like a couple deep breaths in that pose. And you'd be surprised, you can actually start to feel the stress melt. So I kind of pair that with circular breathing. So I'll breathe in for 3 counts and then I'll breathe out for 4 counts while I've got my hands on my hips and I've got that power pose on. Gotcha. Breathe in for 3, breathe out for 4. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 5 if I'm really struggling. Breathe out, and just kind of use like the breathing exercises and that pairing with your post-shot routine to really help you put whatever catastrophe may have happened behind you.
Right. And it's funny you say that, Marty, because my wife and I, we watched a special on Dustin Johnson. Dustin's from Columbia, South Carolina, so that's our hometown. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he said was, when he hits a bad shot, he said, it's over. And, Dustin doesn't really throw clubs and, it's hard to know what type of emotion he has. But that's one of the things that we took from that. And we try to instill in our son is Dustin said, when you hit a bad shot, there's nothing you can do about it.
It's already done. You can't change it. There's no rewind button.
Right. So you just better off moving on. And, I like the piece where you're talking about, taking deep breaths, giving yourself 30 seconds, taking 30 steps, because you see a lot of kids, they like to bang clubs and, they put stress on those shafts and they just, they just causing parents to have to spend more money sometimes. And, it's not a good thing. So, we really appreciate you sharing that with us. And so anything else you want to share with us about, when it comes to golf strategy, what are some of the other things that you teach in your school?
So one of the things that I think is one of the kind of base level game changing concepts that people, when at least that's my perception when they come across this concept, it's the think box play box. So it's from Pia Nilsson and Lynn Marriott. They formed a company called Vision 54, and they've got a book called, I believe it's called Vision 54. And it's just a way to kind of compartmentalize your process a little bit, because I think when, especially as kids, there's so much emotion tied up in everything. I'm like I said, I've got a 12-year-old. Oh boy, that's that's levels of sass that I never thought I could imagine.
Right.
But then I think back to how I was at 12. I had all that same angst and anger and sass and disappointment when I didn't do something well. It's just that I wore mine kind of like Dustin Johnson, like 1 or 2 levels under the surface. So it wasn't as prevalent and as easy to see.
Right.
And when I first learned about this concept of the think box play box, it really helped me kind of break down my pre-shot process into smaller segments that were easier to manage. So then it just kind of becomes a checklist. You're like, okay, I did this. Next on the list is this, and so on until I'm over my ball and I'm hitting my shot. So the think box play box, the concept is that when you're standing behind the ball and you're doing your analysis and your visualization steps, you are in the think box. You can change your plan. You can kind of thought experiment. Oh, what would it look like if I try to hit a high cut instead of, trying to really bore into the wind and hit more of a stinger? Like all of your postulation, all of your thinking, for lack of a better term, happens in the think box.
Right.
And so then as you approach the shot, so you have kind of an imaginary line on the ground that's behind the ball. As you walk around and you come to address, you are now stepping into the play box. And when you're in the play box, you have to stick to the plan that you just made. Right. So this is where we would measure whether or not we've executed our plan that we just made.
Right.
And just to have those kind of clear-cut delineations, I think for a lot of people, especially people who are really trying to hit like a breakthrough or a milestone score, that is a way that they can help kind of break up the monotony that they might be used to and instill that as part of their process to give themselves just a little bit more of a mental edge compared to competitors.
Great. Hey, listen, Marty, I've taken a lot of great notes. This has been really good. Talk to us a little bit about your podcast that you do.
Yeah, so my podcast is the Golf Strategy School podcast. It's really designed more for adults who are either kind of newer to the game and they're trying to, like they've played it, they've fallen in love with it, and now they're like, they've got the bug and they got to figure out how to get better.
Right.
So I deal with a lot of people who are trying to break 90, and then a lot of times those people stick with me to the point where I had to produce coursework for them on how to break 80.
Right.
And I know I really just kind of lean on my experiences. I started off the podcast with almost a year straight of just interviews with golf professionals.
Gotcha.
So I interviewed Golf Digest top 40 folks, sports psychologists, just kind of having a very similar conversation to what we've had. Hey, how did you fall in love with golf? Right. And then at the end, we would transition into more actionable content about like, all right, what's your favorite practice for your students? Right. When your students are really struggling, what's your go-to thing to break them out of it? And things like that. And so it kind of evolved into more of like, hey, how do we look at the mental game? And from there, I just kind of got feedback from my audience, and I went where they wanted to go. So, yeah,
that's good. And where do you want to ultimately take Golf Strategy School?
Oh boy, what is the end game of golf strategy school? So honestly, I would love to, and it's kind of weird because golfers in a lot of ways are very to themselves and introverted. They don't want to share all of their problems and issues and stuff like that. I would love for golf strategy school to be a one-on-one conversation between me and a prospective student where we kind of break down from an analysis standpoint because I love numbers. I'm a numbers nerd.
Right.
I would love to just kind of go through their game and break it down and kind of give them an action plan for maybe like the next 2 to 4 weeks that they play golf.
That's good.
And the goal would then be, hopefully that they would see that value and then return as a client. Right now I have a monthly membership. So I have a breaking 90 and a breaking 80 program.
Gotcha.
And that's where, people who are in one of those two camps, they come to me and I help them through it.
Good, good. But you may want to think about having a breaking 70 and breaking 60 for the juniors. How about that?
Oh boy, my personal best is 66. I went 6 under at my home course in a tournament, and that was all of the lightning in the biggest bottle that I could muster. I haven't been anywhere near it since, but golf is one of those games where it continues to give you new challenges, teach you new lessons. And that's one of the things that I love about it. And it's something that will keep me playing the game forever.
Good, good. Well, listen, we've got several parents, juniors on here, and what we're going to do is we're going to open up the lines a little bit here, Marty. And do we have any questions from any of our parents or juniors?